We receive deliveries to our house about once a week, and my wife wanted to provide a little thank you to those who deliver, so she put out some snacks and water for them to enjoy. Unfortunately, pollen, dirt, and dust is constantly getting all over the snacks, making them look a little old and unappealing. This requires us to clean and replace them nearly every week, so we were looking for a way to cover them but still keep them within view. We thought about a plastic bin, but it just didn't look right on the front porch. We considered a wooden crate, but it was a little too bulky and would still let pollen get in. So, it is time to make something. Now, to save a little bit of time, I came up with a rough sketch just to figure out exactly what we're looking for. We want some kind of a box that has an area in the back for water, a divider, and then an area in the front for snacks. Now, I still have to figure out exactly how to make this fully visible and keep all the pollen out, and we'll figure that out as we go. To make this, I'm going to try and use some 1/4 and 1/2 inch plywood because that's what I already have on hand, but this can be made out of a bunch of different materials. First things first is we need to figure out the size and dimension of our water bottle. Now, being that it's plastic, it's not so easy to measure, but I got my caliper here and I'm trying to find the widest point of it, and it comes out to a little over 2.5 inches. So to keep all these water bottles side by side, we need at least 10.5 inches, but I want a little bit of extra wiggle room, so we're gonna make it about 11.5. Now let's first start off with cutting out the base. I wanna cut out a 12 by about 8.5 sheet, and then I can build everything else off of that. Now for the front and the back of our box, we want to make this out of 1/2 inch plywood to give it a little additional strength. And to use the 1/2 inch plywood that I already have on hand, it's only about 11 inches wide. So if we turn it and make it the height of the box, now we're going to have an 11-inch box. And to take into consideration, we need to still cut out the sides. I cut the width of this board to 11.5 inches. With the back cut at about 11 inches, I believe the front should be about 3 inches. You ever have one of those moments where you goof up on a project right in the middle? Well, I think I just did, but I might have a fix for it, so let me show you. When I cut out the front of this, I realized I must have miscalculated because I don't have the full width. Now I could cut all these down and change it just a little bit on everything else, but I don't want to do that. Now I'm short about the width of 2 of these craft sticks. If I take one and I glue it on each side, I wonder if that'll work. And even though this craft stick is not exactly the same color as this plywood, I'm hoping once the plywood sides are in place that everything will kind of blend together. Well, let's go try it out. And then put a couple clamps on it. Next up, I'm going to cut out the center divider. This is going to be 4 inches tall. And this time making sure it is 11.5 inches wide. And with the center cut out, we now need to work on the sides, which is going to be 8.5 by 11. After giving the glue plenty of time to dry, I'm going to take this over to the bandsaw. I'm going to trim off a majority of it, and then we'll take it over to sander and clean it up. Now, of course, this isn't perfect, but it really doesn't look that bad. Let's give this a test fit and just see how close we are. There's the back, there is the front. Of course, I need to trim down the sides at an angle, but this is looking really good. After doing some math, I realized if I cut this angle here at 45 degrees, I should be able to cut the front and the back at 45 as well, and everything should line up. So let's give that a shot. With everything finally cut into shape, I want to go back and sand off the sharp edges here and here so that as we're reaching in grabbing stuff, we don't accidentally cut ourselves. And to assemble this, we're going to use a combination of wood glue and a brad nailer. If you don't have a brad nailer, that's okay. Just clamp everything together and give it some extra time to dry. Now when we're trying to assemble these thinner pieces, well, they just don't want to stand up for us. So if we take a scrap piece of wood, this is just a 2x4, align this piece roughly where we want it, take your 2x4, put it against it, and then if we clamp them together, now there'll be a lot more strength and structure to it, and it's less likely to fall over. Now, as I'm installing the front, I want you to notice the 2 patch jobs we did on each side blends in almost perfectly with the side panels. That's awesome. Now when it comes to the center divider, I could have installed it permanently right in the center. But there's always a chance instead of water, I may want to put some juice or something else in here and need to be able to move this back and forth. So instead I'm going to use 3 craft sticks and some CA glue to attach to the bottom of this divider, and that'll allow me to still move it back and forth but be able to stand straight up and down. With it inside, it has plenty of room to move back and forth, put whatever I need in front or behind, and doesn't get knocked over easily. With the box complete, we need to now create a cover for it. Now, we'll actually do 3 separate things. First, it needs to basically seal everything in, so to keep pollen, dirt, and debris out, so of course we don't have to go back and clean these on a regular basis. 2, it has to be able to be see-through so that the drivers can know exactly what's in it before, of course, they open it. And 3, it has to be able to open really easily. With that said, let's go try something. I found this thin plexiglass at my local hobby store for about $2. And it's real flexible and it can make music if that's what you'd like. But I believe this will work great as a little shield to keep all the pollen and stuff out, but still be able to clear enough that you can see everything through. So let's try and cut this up. Taking a measurement of our box again, it's about 12 inches wide, maybe slightly over. And the height here is, oh wow, that's 12 inches too. I wish I could say I did that on purpose. And since this is going to be sitting outside in the heat, there's always a chance that there's going to be a little bit of warpage. I'm actually going to cut this at about 12.5 inches, and that'll give it just a little bit of an overhang. And to cut this, we're using a razor blade and a straight edge. Just be very careful when you're cutting it because it can easily move on you. Then after you make several scores on this, you should be able to just kind of pop it and it'll break loose. Like that. Before I add the lid to the box, I actually want to add a protectant to it. I've never tried this before and I'm not sponsored. It's Polyshades by Minwax. It's supposed to be a stain and polyurethane in one. So let's give it a shot. This is supposed to be a classic oak, so it's not going to be a very dark stain. And with the gloss, hopefully this will shine pretty good. That spray gave it kind of a golden tone and really brings out the grain. For the hinges, I decided to splurge a little bit. I went with some that had a longer side here. This will go on the plexiglass side with hopes that it'll give it a little additional strength. And then a shorter edge on this end so that it'll fit to the box nicely. For the pull knob, I couldn't really find anything that I liked, so I decided to make one out of a dowel rod. This knob's about 1 inch in diameter and about 1 inch tall, and then on the bottom I drilled a hole in it so that it doesn't crack when I put a screw in it. And to drill the holes through the plexiglass, I'm going to be using a brad point bit. I hope this is the best for it. It just seems like it would, so let's test it out. For the top of the hinges, the screws that came with it won't work with the plexiglass. So I'm just going to use some machine screws and paint the top and head of it black. And I almost forgot, before I tighten anything down, I got to remove this plastic from the top. And there we have it. It is done. It opens and closes really nicely, and hopefully that'll keep the pollen out, but you can still see in it really easily. Let's go test it out. I believe this is going to work really nicely. And get in there really easily. You can see it really well. The sign, we're probably gonna have to do some adjustments to get it up a little bit higher so they can see it better, but that's okay. Overall, I definitely think this is a win. Tell me what you think. And if you like this project, you should check out this one.